What would you do if you saw your dead granddaughter dining at the table next to you? For Catherine Davenport, the wealthiest woman in New York City, that nightmare became a reality on a Tuesday night. But what she saw wasn't a ghost. It was something far more terrifying. On the wrist of a young waitress gleamed the silver bracelet she had buried with her granddaughter 20 years ago. A bracelet that should have been 6 feet under. A bracelet that held a secret, capable of destroying the most powerful family in America. A bracelet that was about to reveal the cruelest lie a grandmother could ever live. What happened in the next 10 minutes wouldn't just change 2 lives forever. It would shatter an empire of lies built over 2 decades and reveal a betrayal so deep it would shake the foundations of Manhattan. This isn't just the story of a lost bracelet. It's the story of a child sold, a grandmother deceived, and a truth that was about to explode like a bomb in the heart of New York's high society. What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. The Onyx Room was the kind of place where the powerful players of New York came to make deals that would change destinies. Its white linen tablecloths and crystal chandeliers had witnessed billion-dollar mergers, scandalous divorces, and secrets that could topple governments. Located in the exclusive Upper East Side, it was a temple of discretion, where a single dinner cost more than the average New Yorker's monthly salary. Catherine Davenport, 78 years old, knew every corner of this sanctuary of power. As the chairwoman of the Davenport and Associates conglomerate, she had built an empire spanning from construction to technology. But tonight, like every October 15th for the past 20 years, she wasn't the Iron Lady who intimidated boardrooms. She was a broken grandmother, dining alone on the anniversary of her granddaughter's death. Her usual table, number 12, was tucked into the most discreet corner of the restaurant. From there, she could observe the entire room without being easily seen, a habit acquired over decades of negotiations where paranoia meant survival. Her silver hair was coiffed in a flawless bun, and her black Chanel suit had cost more than what most Americans earned in 3 months. At 9:15 p.m., Catherine held a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet she hadn't touched. Her steel-gray eyes were lost in the void, remembering the most terrible day of her life, October 15th, 2004, when her granddaughter Sophia had supposedly died of leukemia at the age of 5. The restaurant's atmosphere was the usual: whispered conversations about corporate acquisitions, the occasional clinking of glasses in a toast, the murmur of multi-million-dollar deals. At the next table, a politician discreetly discussed a public contract. Further on, a pair of entrepreneurs celebrated some agreement with Dom Perignon. Everything was predictable, controlled, exactly as Catherine liked her orderly world to be, until she saw her. The new waitress couldn't have been more than 25. She was of average height, with brown hair pulled back in a low ponytail that revealed an oval face and deep brown eyes that shone with genuine warmth. Her black uniform was pristine, but you could see the wear from many long hours. Her shoes, though polished, showed the scuffs of someone who spends entire days on their feet. She approached the table with a professional smile that reached her eyes, a rare sight in places like this. "Good evening, ma'am. My name is Anna, and I'll have the honor of serving you tonight. Would you like me to bring the wine list?" The voice was soft, with a faint southern twang that Catherine identified immediately. There was something in the way this girl moved, a natural elegance that contrasted with the evident fatigue in her shoulders. "A glass of the Stag's Leap Reserva," Catherine replied, without looking up from the menu. It was a routine. The same table, the same time, the same wine. Every October 15th for 20 years. "Excellent choice, ma'am. Have you had a chance to review our menu? Or would you prefer I recommend a special?" Something in the question made Catherine look up. The waitress was smiling with genuine kindness, not the professional coldness she was used to. But what truly captured her attention was something else. On the young woman's left wrist, gleaming softly under the golden light of the chandeliers, was a silver bracelet. It wasn't just any bracelet. It was a delicate chain from which hung 5 small hearts, each no bigger than a dime. The hearts were slightly worn by time, as if they had been lovingly touched thousands of times. Catherine's world stopped dead. She knew that bracelet better than her own face. She had it specially commissioned for Sophia at a boutique jeweler on Fifth Avenue in 1999 for her 4th birthday. It was a one-of-a-kind piece. The jeweler had assured her he would never make another one like it. But there was something more devastating still. On the center heart, Catherine knew there was an engraving she could read from memory. For Sophia, my eternal star, and that bracelet should have been buried 6 feet under in Woodlawn Cemetery, in the cold hands of her dead granddaughter. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Anna asked, noticing the elegant woman had suddenly turned pale, her hands trembling like leaves in a storm. Catherine couldn't answer. Her throat had closed completely. The restaurant, with its sophisticated murmur and golden lights, faded into a black tunnel. All that existed was that bracelet, shining like a living accusation. Years ago, as they lowered Sophia's small white casket into the cold earth of the cemetery, Catherine had placed that bracelet in the little girl's hands as a promise of eternal love. She had sworn that no one else would ever wear it. "The bracelet," she managed to whisper, in a voice she didn't recognize as her own. "Pardon?" Anna looked down at her wrist and her expression softened. "Oh, this? It was my mother's. She died when I was very little. It's the only thing I have left of her." The words hit Catherine like a physical blow. Her mother. This girl claimed the bracelet belonged to her mother, but that was impossible, because that bracelet was unique in the world. Unless... May I see it closer?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling so much it was barely audible. Anna hesitated for a moment. It was an odd request, but the lady seemed genuinely distressed, and there was something in her eyes, a vulnerability that completely contrasted with her powerful demeanor. "Of course," she finally said, extending her wrist toward Catherine. When Catherine leaned in to examine the bracelet, what she saw left her completely breathless. It wasn't just the 5 silver hearts with the same unique design. It wasn't just the delicate chain with the same pattern she remembered. On the center heart, engraved in elegant, tiny script, was the inscription she herself had dictated to the jeweler 24 years ago. "For Sophia, my eternal star." But there was something else. Something that made the floor open up beneath her. On the back of the last heart, so small it was barely legible, was another inscription, one she had never seen before. "From your grandmother, Catherine, who will never forget you." Catherine had never ordered that second inscription. She had never known it existed. A sob, a heartbreaking wail escaped her throat. Then another. In a matter of seconds, the most powerful woman in New York was crying like a lost child in the middle of America's most elegant restaurant. "Oh my God," she screamed, her voice breaking in a mix of pain, shock, and something that might have been impossible hope. "It's her! It's my Sophia!" The entire restaurant fell into absolute silence. Every conversation stopped as if someone had hit a pause button. 100 pairs of eyes turned to table 12, where Catherine Davenport, the queen of industry, was slumping over the table, sobbing as if the world had ended. The nearest patrons got up from their seats, some pulling out their phones to record the moment. The restaurant's maître d', Victor Morales, ran over with an expression of total panic. A crisis at the Onyx Room could ruin its reputation forever. "Mrs. Davenport, are you all right? Do you need me to call a doctor?" Victor asked, but Catherine wasn't listening. Anna stepped back, terrified by the woman's reaction. Had she done something wrong? Why was this elegant woman crying like that? And why had she shouted? That wasn't her name. Her name was Anna. It had always been Anna. "Ma'am, what's wrong? Have I offended you in some way?" she asked with genuine concern. But Catherine was lost in a whirlwind of emotions. Because if that bracelet was here, with this girl who said it belonged to her dead mother, then everything she had believed for 20 years was a lie. If her granddaughter Sophia had truly died of leukemia as they had told her, if she had been at her funeral, if she had watched the casket being lowered into the grave, then how was it possible that her bracelet was here? Who was buried in Woodlawn Cemetery? And most terrifying of all, who had been lying to her for 2 decades? Her thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice behind her. "Mother, what the hell is going on here?" Catherine turned and saw her son, Richard, standing by her table. He was 52, with perfectly coiffed salt and pepper hair, and wearing an Armani suit that cost more than a car. His blue eyes, so much like Sophia's, showed a mixture of irritation and nervousness. "Richard," Catherine whispered, wiping her tears with a linen napkin. "What are you doing here?" "Victor called me. He said you're having a nervous breakdown in public." Richard looked around in disgust. Half of Manhattan is recording this on their phones. "Look at the bracelet," Catherine said, pointing a trembling finger at Anna's wrist. "Look at this girl's bracelet." Richard followed his mother's gaze to Anna, who was still standing by the table, clearly uncomfortable with all the attention. When his eyes landed on the silver bracelet, his face turned white as paper. It's just a bracelet, Mother," he said, but his voice sounded strange, forced. "It's Sophia's bracelet," Catherine cried, rising from her chair. "The one we put in her hands in the casket. The one I had made especially for her." "Mother, you're confused. The grief, the date, it's the anniversary. You always get this way?" But Anna had noticed something. When Richard looked at her bracelet, there wasn't surprise in his eyes. There was recognition and fear. "Excuse me," Anna said, addressing Richard. Do you know this bracelet?" "Of course not," Richard replied, far too quickly. "Why would I know the bracelet of a waitress?" The way he said waitress was dismissive, almost cruel. But what really caught Anna's attention was something else. When he looked at her, his eyes filled with tears he was fighting to hold back. "Richard," Catherine said, her voice now cold as ice. "Look at this girl. Look at her eyes." Richard obeyed, and what he saw left him paralyzed. Anna's eyes were exactly like Sophia's. The same almond shape, the same honey brown color, the same sweet, intelligent expression. She looks like her," he whispered. And for a moment his mask cracked. "Who do I look like?" Anna asked, now completely bewildered. "My granddaughter," Catherine replied, standing tall. "My granddaughter, Sophia, who supposedly died 20 years ago." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard seemed to be fighting with himself, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, Catherine made a decision. "Anna," she said, her voice now firm and resolute, "I need to ask you some questions. Could you please join me when your shift ends? I don't know. This is very strange. I will pay you for your time, and I promise you, after tonight, you will have answers to questions you have probably had your entire life." Anna looked at the bracelet on her wrist, then at Catherine and finally at Richard, who looked like he was about to faint. "I'm off at 11, she said finally. "I'll be waiting outside." As Anna walked away to continue her work, Richard grabbed his mother's arm. "Mother, this is insane. That girl cannot be what, Richard?" Catherine asked, locking her gray eyes on her son's. "Cannot be my granddaughter? Why are you so sure?" Richard opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out. In that moment, Catherine knew with absolute certainty that her son was hiding something terrible. "We're leaving," Catherine said, grabbing her purse, "and tomorrow we are going to find out the truth." What truth? The truth about what really happened to Sophia. As they left the restaurant, Catherine had no idea she was about to uncover the most devastating secret of her life. A secret that would involve her own son, a web of corruption reaching the highest echelons of power, and a betrayal so profound it would forever change her understanding of what it means to be family. All she knew was that the silver bracelet was the key to a mystery that had been waiting 20 years to be solved, and that before the week was over, nothing in her world would ever be the same. At 11:30 p.m., Anna walked out of the Onyx room, her hands trembling and her heart racing. The last 30 minutes of her shift had been torture. She couldn't stop thinking about the elegant woman's reaction, her tears, the name she had screamed, Sophia. Catherine was waiting by a brand new black Mercedes-Benz. Her chauffeur, a serious-looking older man, held the back door open. "Anna," Catherine said softly, "thank you for coming. I promise I am not going to hurt you. I just need answers." "I need answers too," Anna replied, approaching the car. "My whole life I've felt like something was missing, like I was an incomplete puzzle." During the drive to an exclusive mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, Catherine told her everything. She told her about Sophia, about the supposed leukemia, about the funeral that she now was beginning to doubt had ever been real. "How can you be sure that That I'm your granddaughter? Anna asked. Because of the bracelet. But also your eyes. They are exactly like hers, and there's something else. Catherine paused. The way Richard reacted when he saw you. He was terrified. Why would he be terrified? That is the question that will kill me if I don't find the answer. They arrived at a mansion that looked like a palace. Anna had never seen anything like it. Perfectly manicured lawns, marble fountains, enormous windows that shone like jewels in the night. Catherine's study was an impressive library, with floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with antique books. But what caught Anna's attention was a table covered with photo albums, documents, and children's keepsakes. This is all Sophia's, Catherine explained, opening one of the albums. I kept every photo, every drawing, every memory from her 5 years of life. Anna moved closer, and what she saw left her breathless. The little girl in the photos was like looking at a miniature version of herself. The same eyes, the same smile, and even the same dimple on her chin. Oh my God, Anna whispered. It's like looking in a mirror. Here she is, Catherine said, pointing to a specific photo. It was Sophia on her 5th birthday, smiling radiantly, the silver bracelet gleaming on her small wrist. The last photo I took before she got sick. Got sick. Why do you say it like that? Because tonight I'm starting to doubt everything I was told. Catherine picked up the phone. I'm calling my private investigator. I need him to check Sophia's medical files from 2004. While Catherine made the call, Anna continued to examine the photos. In one of them, Sophia was with a tall, elegant man with dark hair. Who is he? She asked when Catherine hung up. Richard, Sophia's father. My son. He looks different. Younger. Happier. He was different before Sophia died. Afterward, he became cold, distant. Said he couldn't bear to talk about her. Anna studied the photo more closely. There was something in Richard's eyes, even in that happy photo, that unsettled her. A kind of hidden desperation. Catherine, she said finally, there's something I have to tell you. About my mother, my adoptive mother, Hope. Yes? She always told me my biological parents died in an accident when I was a baby. But sometimes, when she was very sick, she would say strange things. What kind of things? She'd talk about a rich woman who was crying for a lost little girl. She said that woman had a right to know the truth, but that it was too dangerous. Catherine sat down heavily in her chair. Too dangerous. Why would it be dangerous? I don't know. But now that I've met you, I wonder if she was talking about you. Catherine's phone rang. It was her investigator, Mrs. Davenport. I've reviewed the files from Mount Sinai Hospital regarding your granddaughter. There is something very strange. What did you find? Sophia's original medical files have disappeared. Only copies remain. And those copies, they have massive inconsistencies. The dates don't line up. The doctor's signatures are different. And strangest of all, there is no record of an autopsy. Catherine felt the world tilt. How is it possible there's no autopsy? In cases of childhood leukemia, especially when the treatment has been so extensive, an autopsy is mandatory. The fact that there isn't one suggests what? It suggests that there was possibly never a body to examine. Catherine dropped the phone. Anna helped her into the chair. What did he say? Anna asked. He said, it's possible Sophia never died. They sat in silence for several minutes, absorbing the magnitude of what this meant. But if I am Sophia, Anna said at last, how did I end up in an orphanage? And why would my own father let you believe I was dead? That, Catherine said, her voice dangerously quiet, is exactly the question we are going to ask him tomorrow. But Richard didn't wait until tomorrow. At 2:30 a.m., the mansion's lights flared as a car screeched to a halt at the entrance. Richard burst into the study, accompanied by his wife Carolyn, a 45-year-old blonde woman who had always treated Catherine with barely disguised coldness. What is the meaning of this? Richard shouted, pointing at Anna. Why is this girl in our house? This girl, Catherine said, rising slowly, is your daughter. She is Sophia. That's impossible. Sophia is dead. We were at her funeral, were we? Or was it just me crying over a casket while you knew the truth? The accusation hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Carolyn turned pale, but Richard maintained his defiant posture. "You're insane, Mother. The grief has finally broken your mind." "Then explain this," Catherine said, showing him Anna's bracelet. "Explain how a waitress has the one-of-a-kind bracelet I commissioned for your daughter." Richard looked at the bracelet, and for a moment, his mask completely shattered. His eyes filled with tears. That's impossible. Stop lying," Catherine roared with a fury that rattled the windows. "I have spent 20 years mourning a child who is apparently alive and working as a waitress. Tell me the truth." "I can't," he finally screamed, and he collapsed. "You can't understand. You don't know what was at stake. Before we continue, please take a moment to leave a comment about this story and rate it from 1 to 10. How are you feeling? If there's anything you'd like to share, I'm always here to listen. I hope you find a moment of peace and reflection as you follow this healing story and its journey of courage and justice." "What was at stake?" Anna asked, stepping toward him. "I'm your daughter. What could possibly be more important than that?" Richard looked at her, and in his eyes was 20 years of accumulated guilt and pain. "The money. It was all about the money." Carolyn grabbed his arm. "Richard, don't say another word. No, Carolyn, it's over. I can't do this anymore." He turned to his mother. "In 1999, I had massive debts. I'd lost millions on stupid investments, on gambling. The loan sharks, they threatened to kill me. And what does that have to do with Sophia? I knew someone who specialized in procuring children for wealthy families who couldn't adopt through normal channels." Anna staggered as if she'd been punched. You sold me?" "It was temporary," Richard yelled. "It was just supposed to be until I could get the money back. But then what?" "Then the organization was discovered. They shut down the orphanage, arrested some people. There was no way to get you back without exposing everything. So you decided it was just easier to let me think she was dead," Catherine said, her voice frozen. "You don't know what it's like to owe $50 million, Richard cried. "They would have killed me. They would have killed all of us. Instead, you killed your daughter. You sold her like she was livestock." Anna couldn't speak. The room was spinning. For 24 years, she had been Anna Ruiz, a poor girl from a humble neighborhood. It turned out she was Sophia Davenport, heiress to an empire, sold by her own father to pay gambling debts. "How much?" she asked, her voice cracking. "What? How much did you get for me?" Richard closed his eyes. $5 million. $5 million, Anna repeated. "That was my price. $5 million. She turned to Catherine. "While you were crying, thinking I was dead, I grew up in poverty. Hope worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. We never had heat in the winter. We ate lentils 5 days a week. And this whole time, there was $5 million that should have been mine." "Anna," Richard began. "My name is Sophia," she screamed. And for the first time in 20 years, Catherine heard her granddaughter's voice, strong and fierce. "You stole my name, my family, my life. You condemned me to poverty while you lived like a king." "I'm sorry," Richard sobbed. "I'm so sorry." "You're sorry?" Catherine's voice was lethal. "Are you sorry for the 20 years I lost crying? Are you sorry for the nights I spent begging to hold my granddaughter one more time? Are you sorry that Sophia grew up not even knowing who she was?" Carolyn, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Richard, you told them. Let's go. You knew too?" Anna realized. "You knew I was alive?" "It was complicated. I was your stepdaughter," Anna cried. "You had a right to visit me, to make sure I was okay. But instead you erased me from my life as if I never existed." The next few minutes were chaotic. Richard continued to sob and apologize. Carolyn tried to defend the indefensible. Catherine alternated between fury and the relief of finally having answers. But it was Anna who took control. "I want you to leave," she said, with a calm that frightened everyone. "I want you to get out of this house and never come back." "Sophia, I'm your father." "You are not my father. A father doesn't sell his daughter. You are a stranger who ruined my life." Richard and Carolyn moved toward the door, defeated. But before leaving, Richard turned one last time. "The woman who raised you, Hope, is she okay? Do you care?" Anna asked bitterly. "She was a good woman. I made sure you went to someone good. She has lung cancer. The doctors say without experimental treatment. She has weeks. Richard paled. How much? How much is the treatment? $500,000. Money I don't have. Because my father sold me instead of giving me my inheritance. Without another word, Richard left the mansion. When they were gone, Catherine and Anna were left alone in the devastating silence of the revealed truth. What do we do now? Anna asked. Now, Catherine said, hugging her granddaughter for the first time in 20 years. We make up for lost time. And we make sure Hope gets the best treatment in the world. I don't want your money out of pity. It's not pity. It's because you are my granddaughter. It's because you have a right to everything that was stolen from you. And it's because Hope deserves to live, after taking such good care of my most precious treasure. Anna let herself be hugged, feeling for the first time in her life that she belonged somewhere. Grandmother, she whispered, testing the word on her lips. Sophia, Catherine replied, crying with joy. My little Sophia. But their reunion was interrupted by the sound of a phone. It was Catherine's investigator. Mrs. Davenport, I found something else. Something that changes everything. What did you find? I traced the money your son received in 1999. The $5 million... It didn't come from a child trafficking organization. Where did it come from? From a Swiss bank account. An account that belongs to someone you know very well. Catherine's blood ran cold. Who? Carolyn Price, your daughter-in-law. It seems she was the one who organized the entire thing. Richard thought he was saving the family, but in reality, he was being manipulated by his own wife. Catherine looked at Anna, and they both understood that the story was even darker than they had imagined. The betrayal hadn't just come from Richard. It had come from the woman who was supposed to be Sophia's mother. Tomorrow, Catherine said, her voice perilous, we are going to destroy Carolyn Price. The dawn of October 18th found Catherine Davenport awake in her study, surrounded by documents that had arrived overnight. Her private investigator had worked tirelessly, and the results were devastating. Carolyn Price wasn't just the woman who had sold Sophia. She was the head of an international ring that, for 25 years, had trafficked children from wealthy families in crisis. Anna was asleep on the study sofa, wrapped in a cashmere blanket. They had spent the night reading files, looking at photos of other missing children, and planning what Catherine had decided to call Carolyn Price's Judgment Day. At 7:30 a.m., the phone rang. It was Arthur Mendoza, the most feared lawyer in New York. Mrs. Davenport, I have extraordinary news. The Swiss police have found more of Carolyn's bank accounts. The money totals over $340 million, blood money, from the sale of 83 children over 3 decades. Tatouan. Catherine felt nauseous. It wasn't 47. The records we had were only from the last 20 years. Carolyn has been at this since 1994. She started by selling children from upper-middle-class families facing temporary financial problems. She'd promised them it was a temporary adoption, that they'd get their children back when they were stable. Anna woke up, hearing the conversation. Her eyes filled with horror. And what really happened? Catherine asked. The children were sold to wealthy families in other countries who couldn't adopt through legal channels. Gay couples in countries where it was illegal. Magnates with criminal records. Even some who wanted children for other purposes. Catherine closed her eyes. Other purposes. Not all buyers were loving families, Mrs. Davenport. Some were labor exploitation rings. Others were worse. Anna walked over and took the phone. What happened to those children? We are investigating every case. Interpol has activated an operation in 15 countries. But miss, I have to warn you, you were one of the lucky ones. You ended up with a family that loved you. Many other children didn't have that luck. Anna sat down heavily. She had grown up poor, yes, but she had been loved unconditionally by Hope. Other children had ended up in far worse situations. Where is Carolyn now? Catherine asked. At her home in Greenwich, preparing for her big party tonight at the Plaza Hotel. She's celebrating her company's 40th anniversary. She's invited 400 people from New York's high society. Perfect, Catherine said, with a smile that would have terrified a shark. Her last party is going to be a memorable one. For the next several hours, Catherine and Mendoza meticulously organized what would be the biggest scandal in the history of New York's elite. They contacted investigative journalists, coordinated with the NYPD, the FBI, and Interpol, and prepared irrefutable evidence to be presented in public. But first, there was something important to do. At 2:00 p.m., Catherine and Anna arrived at Mount Sinai Hospital, where Hope Ruiz was in the intensive care unit. Her cancer had worsened during the emotional crisis of the last few days. Hope, connected to multiple machines, opened her eyes when she saw the two women enter. "My girl," she whispered, extending a trembling hand toward Anna. "Is it true? What they told me? Are you really—" "I'm Sophia Davenport," Anna said, taking the hand of the woman who raised her. "But I am also Anna Ruiz. You made me who I am, Mom." "I always knew you were special," Hope cried. "I always knew you came from an important family. But I was afraid I'd lose you if someone came looking." Catherine approached the other side of the bed. "Hope, I want you to know that I owe you everything. You saved my granddaughter when I thought I had lost her forever. I just did what any mother would do." "No," Catherine said firmly. "You were extraordinary. You gave her love, values, strength. You raised her to be an incredible woman. And now I want you to let me take care of you just as you took care of her. Mrs. Davenport, Catherine, we're family now." Hope smiled weakly. "Catherine, I don't have money for expensive treatments. Money is not an issue, but I need you to promise me something, that you will fight, that you will accept the treatment. Because Sophia, she needs you, and I do too. You need me? You are the only person in the world who knows my granddaughter better than I do. You're the only one who can tell me what she was like as a child, what she liked, what made her laugh. I have 20 years of her life to catch up on, and you are my only guide." Hope wept with emotion. At that moment, Dr. Vega, the top oncologist in America, entered the room. "Mrs. Ruiz, I have good news. The new experimental treatment that Mrs. Davenport has authorized is showing very promising results. We begin tomorrow. How much does it cost?" Hope asked weakly. "It's already paid for," Catherine said, "and not just the treatment. I've also purchased the apartment next to yours to renovate it and turn it into a private medical suite for your recovery. I can't accept—" "You're not accepting anything," Anna interrupted. "It's the very least my family can do for the woman who saved my life." That evening, while Hope rested under the best medical care in the country, Catherine and Anna prepared for the night's confrontation. "Are you sure you want to do this publicly?" Catherine asked, as a team of stylists prepared Anna at the mansion. "Carolyn destroyed 83 families. She deserves for the whole world to know who she really is. It's going to be brutal. The media will be there. All of New York will be talking about this tomorrow." "Good. I want them to talk. I want everyone to know that children are not merchandise to be bought and sold." At 8:09 p.m., they arrived at the Plaza Hotel in a black limousine. Anna wore a navy blue Valentino gown that cost more than she had earned in her entire life, but she moved with a natural elegance that made it clear that class couldn't be bought. The hotel's ballroom was glittering. 400 guests from the American elite chatted over glasses of Dom Perignon and canapés that cost $50 each. Politicians, CEOs, aristocrats, celebrities. The entire creme de la creme of New York society was present. Carolyn Price shone like the queen of the night. At 48, she wore a gold Ely Saab gown that had cost $80,000 and jewels valued at over $500,000. She moved among her guests with the confidence of someone who believed she was untouchable. Richard was by her side, visibly uncomfortable. He hadn't been able to sleep or eat in 3 days, ever since the revelation about Sophia. His haggard face contrasted sharply with his wife's radiant happiness. "What is wrong with you?" Carolyn whispered to him during a lull. "You're ruining my night with that funeral face." "Carolyn, we have to talk. About Sophia. About what you did. About what I did?" Carolyn smiled coldly. "I saved our family from financial ruin. I saved you from the loan sharks who would have killed you. You should be grateful." "Grateful? You sold my daughter." "I sold a child we couldn't afford to a family that could give her a better life. It was an act of generosity." "Generosity? Who else have you helped like that, Carolyn?" Carolyn moved dangerously close to her husband. "Richard, I suggest you keep your mouth shut. You have just as much to lose as I do. More, in fact." But their conversation was interrupted as the ballroom doors swung open dramatically. Catherine Davenport entered like an avenging apparition, dressed entirely in black. Her presence was so powerful that the conversations gradually died down. At her side walked Anna, elegant and serene, carrying a small, blue velvet box. Behind them entered Arthur Mendoza, 3 NYPD detectives, 2 agents from the FBI's human trafficking unit, and surprisingly, 5 television camera crews from the major American networks. The silence that fell over the ballroom was absolute. Carolyn instantly paled. What is happening? Catherine walked directly to the stage, where a microphone was set up for the night's speeches. Her steps echoed in the silence like hammer blows. "Good evening," she said, her amplified voice filling the room. "I'm sorry to interrupt this wonderful celebration, but I have something very important to share with you all." "Catherine," Carolyn shouted from the crowd. "What are you doing?" "This is my party." "Your party," Catherine replied with an icy smile, "is about to become your social funeral." A nervous murmur rippled through the crowd. The TV cameras began rolling. "Ladies and gentlemen," Catherine continued, "I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is my granddaughter, Sophia Davenport." Anna joined her on stage gracefully. The resemblance between grandmother and granddaughter was undeniable. "Many of you will remember that Sophia supposedly died of leukemia 20 years ago," Catherine said. "I believed it too. I mourned her death for 2 decades. I visited her grave every month. I kept her toys, her clothes, her photos. But it turns out Sophia never died. She was sold. Sold for $5 million. By the very woman we are celebrating tonight." The room erupted in shocked and horrified gasps. "That's a lie," Carolyn screamed, pushing her way through the crowd toward the stage. "You're insane, Catherine. Everyone knows you're insane." "Am I insane?" Catherine opened a folder full of documents. "Are these bank records insane? The ones showing transfers of $5 million from your personal Swiss account to the criminal network that took my granddaughter? Are these 83 files of children you have sold over 30 years insane?" The number landed like a bomb. 83 children. The crowd gasped collectively. 3, Anna repeated, taking the microphone. "Carolyn Price has for 3 decades run the largest child trafficking network in North America." "That's impossible," someone shouted from the audience. Mr. Mendoza stepped onto the stage with 3 briefcases full of documents. "Ladies and gentlemen, the files I have here document every single transaction. Names, dates, amounts, selling families, buying families, all meticulously recorded by Carolyn herself to avoid problems with her clientele. Every time a wealthy family faced a financial crisis," Anna explained, "Carolyn would approach them with a solution. She promised the separation would be temporary, that the children would be well cared for, that they could get them back when they were financially stable. But the children never came back. They were sold to families in Argentina, Mexico, Switzerland, and right here in the United States. Some to loving families who couldn't adopt legally, others to labor exploitation rings, and others to situations even worse. Carolyn had managed to reach the stage, her face disfigured by panic and rage. "These are lies. Fabrications. Catherine is lying because she can't accept that her granddaughter is dead." "Lies?" Anna opened the velvet box she was carrying. Inside was the silver bracelet, shining under the ballroom lights. This bracelet was made especially for Sophia Davenport in 1999. It is one of a kind in the world. It was supposedly buried with her, but I have worn it my entire life. The woman who raised me told me it was the only thing I had from my birth mother. This morning, I took a DNA test," Anna continued, holding up the official results. 9.97% match with Catherine Davenport. I am her biological granddaughter." "Impossible," Carolyn muttered, but her voice had lost all conviction. "And there's more," Mr. Mendoza said, approaching the microphone. "Some of you in this very room have been clients of Carolyn Price." A deathly hush fell over the crowd. Several people near the exits began to move, nervously. We have records of 15 prominent American families who purchased children through Carolyn's network between 1994 and 2019. Their names are in these files. We are not going to expose them tonight, Catherine said magnanimously. However, Anna added, we are giving them 48 hours to come forward voluntarily and cooperate with the reunification of these families. Those who cooperate will be treated with more leniency than those who try to flee or hide the evidence. Several guests immediately left the ballroom. clearly terrified. "You can't do this," Carolyn shrieked. "This is a conspiracy, a personal vendetta." "A personal vendetta?" Catherine's voice turned lethal. "Carolyn, you destroyed 83 families. You sold children like they were livestock. You condemned dozens of children to lives of exploitation and abuse. And you have the audacity to talk about a personal vendetta? I helped those families. I gave them money when they needed it." "You helped?" Anna stepped up to Carolyn until they were face to face. "Did you help my family when you sold me for $5 million? While you lived in mansions and threw $200,000 parties? I grew up in a 400-square-foot apartment without heat. While you vacationed on yachts in the Mediterranean, my adoptive mother worked 3 jobs to feed us. While you collected art and jewelry, we recycled second-hand clothes." Each word was like a slap. Carolyn recoiled, her composure completely shattered. "It wasn't personal," she screamed desperately. "It was just business." "Just business." "Just business?" Richard had climbed onto the stage, his face filled with tears and self-loathing. "Carolyn, are you talking about my daughter? About our daughter? She was never our daughter." Carolyn spat, her mask falling away completely. "She was a burden. An obstacle. She cost us money we didn't have. When your financial crisis hit, the first thing I thought was, finally, we have something valuable to sell." The silence that followed was absolute. Carolyn had condemned herself with her own words, admitting publicly that she had viewed a 5-year-old child as merchandise. "Something valuable to sell," Anna repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief and horror. "I was a child. I was your stepdaughter. I was 5 years old. I was a little girl who called you mommy, a little girl who trusted you, who hugged you, who thought you would protect her. And you sold me, like I was an object." Carolyn, realizing what she had said, tried to backtrack. "No, I didn't mean... I was confused." "No," Catherine said firmly. "You weren't confused. You finally told the truth. You sold my granddaughter because you saw her as a commodity." The police officers who had been waiting at the edges of the room moved toward the stage. "Carolyn Price," the lead detective said, "you are under arrest for child trafficking, racketeering, fraud, money laundering, and corruption of minors. You can't arrest me here," Carolyn shrieked as they put her in handcuffs. "I am a respected businesswoman. I have lawyers." "Your lawyers," Mr. Mendoza said with satisfaction, "resigned this afternoon when they learned of the allegations. Apparently they didn't want to be associated with a child trafficker." As they led Carolyn away, cuffed and crying hysterically, the crowd of guests followed her with their eyes in stunned silence. Her empire, built over decades, was crumbling in real time. But the drama wasn't over. "There is something else you all must know," Anna announced, returning to the microphone. Carolyn's network did not act alone. She had accomplices in hospitals, orphanages, courthouses, and adoption agencies. Over the next few days, more arrests will be made. More truths will come to light. But there are also victims who need help. 83 children were sold. We have located 34 of them. Many want to be reunited with their biological families. Others have decided to stay with the families who raised them. All of them deserve support. "That is why," Catherine said, taking back the microphone, "tonight, I am announcing the creation of the Sophia Foundation for Family Reunification. We are donating an initial $200 million to locate victims, reunite families, provide psychological therapy, and support everyone affected by this criminal network." The crowd, which had been in shock, began to react. A CEO in the front row stood up. "I will donate $5 million. $10 million, shouted a voice from the back. $20 million! In a matter of minutes, the donation surpassed an additional $150 million. The tragedy was turning into a wave of solidarity. But not everyone was contributing. Richard approached the microphone, his face ravaged by years of repressed guilt. "Sophia," he said, his voice breaking, "I know I have no right to call you my daughter. I know what I did is unforgivable, but I want you to know, not a single day went by that I didn't think of you. Every year on your birthday, I donated money to orphanages. It was never enough, but—" "I don't want your blood money," Anna interrupted him firmly. "I know, but I want you to understand. Carolyn manipulated me. She got me into gambling to get me into debt. Then she offered me the solution when I was desperate." "That doesn't forgive you," Anna said. "You were my father. You had an obligation to protect me, not sell me. You're right. You're completely right. But, Anna continued, her voice softening slightly, I also understand that you were a victim of Carolyn's. Not an innocent victim, but a victim nonetheless. What can I do to make up for what I did? You can testify in all the trials. You can help us locate every child that was sold. You can dedicate the rest of your life to repairing the damage you helped cause. I will, Richard promised. Anything, whatever it takes. And you can start by fully funding Hope's treatment. She saved me when you abandoned me. You owe her everything. I already did, this morning. I set up a $5 million trust for her lifelong treatment and care. I also bought the apartment next to hers to turn it into a medical suite. It was the least I could do, but it was a start. The party, which had begun as a celebration, ended as a social funeral for Carolyn Price and a rebirth for the victims of her criminal network. 6 months later, the epilogue to this story was written in a completely different place. Hope Ruiz's small, renovated apartment in Queens. The humble apartment had been completely transformed. It now occupied 2 floors, with state-of-the-art medical equipment, but it maintained the warmth of the home Hope had created. Hope, now in full remission thanks to the best medical treatment in the world, was in the kitchen, teaching Catherine how to make homemade meatballs. No, Catherine, Hope laughed. You have to feel the mixture, like this, with love. In 78 years, I have never cooked, Catherine confessed, getting her hands dirty for the first time in decades. I've always had chefs. Cooking with love is different. It's like raising a child. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't put your heart into it. In the living room, Anna was reviewing reports from the Sophia Foundation. In 6 months, they had located 67 of the 83 children. 34 had chosen to reunite with their biological families. 28 had decided to maintain contact with both families. 5 had preferred to stay only with their adoptive families. Every case was different. Every family had different needs, but all were receiving psychological and financial support. How are the trials going? Catherine asked, walking over with her hands covered in breadcrumbs. Carolyn was sentenced to 30 years without the possibility of parole. Richard got 8 years, but he'll be out in 4 for his cooperation. How do you feel about that? About Carolyn? Satisfied. About Richard, Anna paused. I'm learning to forgive. Not for him. For me. Forgiveness is a process, Hope said from the kitchen. Some days you can forgive, other days you can't, and that's okay. That night, the 3 women ate at the small kitchen table, sharing homemade meatballs and cheap red wine that tasted better than the most expensive champagne. You know what the most ironic part of all this is? Anna said, touching her silver bracelet. What? Catherine and Hope asked in unison. Carolyn thought she was selling me, but really, she was sending me to the 2 strongest, most loving women I could have ever known. Hope taught me what unconditional love means. Catherine showed me what strength and justice mean. Together, you made me whole. Catherine took her granddaughter's hand, and Hope took the other. 3 generations of strong women, bound not just by blood or adoption, but by genuine love. Family, Hope said wisely, is not defined by blood. It's defined by love and sacrifice. And sometimes, Catherine added, looking at the bracelet that had started it all, a small piece of silver can change the entire world. 2 years later, the Sophia Foundation had grown into the largest family reunification organization in America. Anna ran the Victims Outreach Program. Catherine managed the finances, and Hope had become the unofficial emotional counselor for all the families. Richard, after serving his sentence, worked as a volunteer at the foundation, dedicating every day to repairing the damage he had caused. He never fully regained his relationship with Anna, but he managed to earn her respect, and every single Sunday, without fail, the 3 women cooked together in the small apartment in Queens, creating new memories to replace the 20 years that were lost. Because in the end, they learned that true family is never bought or sold. It's built, with love, day by day, meal by meal, hug by hug, and sometimes, a silver bracelet can be the thread that guides a lost child all the way back home. This story teaches us that justice may come late, but it always arrives. That true love transcends blood, money, and time, and that the smallest objects sometimes hold the biggest secrets. A silver bracelet didn't just reunite a family. It destroyed a criminal network, saved 83 lives, and proved that love always finds its way back home.